All right, now that we have our castle towers segmented and the physics created and textured, we want to go ahead and watch the physics play out one more time to see if it's satisfactory. So I'm going to hit P. And yeah, that's a lot cooler. A lot more different size debris and shapes of things flying out all over the place everywhere. I like that. So I'm going to hit escape. And we want to be able to carry this animation we create back over into the regular Blender render so we can be back in our regular environment and render however we want to or make animations or whatever. So what we're going to do is click Game, Record Animation, and I'm going to go ahead and set this end to a couple thousand, and it doesn't have to be precise, just to where long enough where I think my animation will go. And so we're going to hit P, and this is recording the animation frame by frame of every single block object. So it's might be a little clunky, might go a little slow, but you want to wait for, at the very least, you want to wait for all the bricks to hit the ground. Ah, that one's gonna get us. Um, um, I'll go ahead and let that render out. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and hit escape. And if we change Blender Game back into Blender Render, you'll see all these frames animated here in the timeline. And if I right click and drag this along, you see you've got about 14 seconds of animation. I'm going to go over here into my render tab, and under dimensions, make sure it's set to 25 frames per second. And so now what will happen is because we recorded the physics of this at 100 frames per second, we're going to get a slightly, well, actually about 4 times slower calculation of this explosion, which really brings that down to a speed that we want cinematically for the most part. But when you render your animation out, I mean, you don't have to make it the entire 14 seconds long, or you might find a segment where you like to start or to end. But anyway, we want to, now that we've got the animation here, we want to go ahead and set up a camera. So I'm going to hit, well, first I'm going to hit my tilde key. That's the little squiggly line button under your escape button. I'm going to hit it over where I have my outliner placed. And see, in my configuration, I keep my outliner right next to my dope sheet, where I change back and forth between my dope sheet and my graph editor for animating, because you need a dope sheet to be able to edit frames at all, to move them back and forward or anything like that. The timeline just displays where keyframes are, but it doesn't let you adjust any of them. So I keep my timeline up here with my play controls and everything like that, and then my dope sheet down here, like say if I click on one of these random bricks here, you see, and I scroll in, you see all the keyframes. And then here I can actually adjust them and change the time of stuff. And as an animator, that's, you know, that's the most important thing. So that's part of why I have this set up like this down here. But I'm going to hit if you drag your mouse over any window, any different kind of window in Blender, and hit the tilde key, the squiggly key under the escape key, you can maximize that window to get a better view of everything going on. So especially with my outliner, outliner view, the outliner can have so much stuff in it anyway at any given time that I usually keep it real small, just enough to where I can scroll through and see a little bit, and then press my tilde key to get to stuff when I need it. And then also kind of the same with my UV image editor down here, which you need pretty much a window with your UV image editor open at all times in Blender. So that's why it's kind of cornerstone down here in the corner, and I can also go over here and hit my tilde key to maximize that when I need to. But I'm going to hit my tilde key over the outliner so I can scroll up and find my camera and make sure that the eye is selected. If the eye is not turned on the camera, well, which the eye controls visibility in the scene of an object anyway, but I especially need it on for the camera because the eye has to be on if you're going to animate something, and I want to eventually animate my camera. But so I'm going to find a view I think that is maybe kind of interesting here. I want to be able to see the tower, but then also be able to watch some of it, the blocks tumble down. So that's about good. And I'm going to hit Alt-Control-0, which aligns my camera view with my regular scene view. And if you go into your property shelf and you hit View and you have Lock Camera to View selected, then your regular way you navigate around Blender will also navigate and control the camera. And this is very helpful because I think it's really ridiculous in every single 3D program that your camera navigation has different controls from your regular scene navigation. I mean, I suppose there's, some kind of technical reason for that. People with camera experience want to operate it a certain way or something, but to me it's just a pain. So I keep that check mark. So we're going to find a little view we like there, and that's about good. And then I'm going to hit play and kind of let this play out for a little bit. I'll stop it right there, and I'm going to zoom in on it. And it's zooming in kind of slow. Whenever you're zooming in and out and Blender's being a bad little blender, just click on an object that you want to zoom in on, and if you hit the delete or little period dot key on your numpad, it will zoom in on that object, and which also fixes your zooming in and out. So I'm going to go to about right here, and I'm going to do a little test render, not of the animation, but of just of the scene here. Yeah, I'll get a little closer on it. But before we do that, I want to click on the World tab. Actually, I want to click on the Material tab. Actually, I want to click on the Texture tab and select, under the Texture tab, select the world icon. Then I'm going to hit New. And for the first time, we're actually going to keep the type as clouds. Just going to leave that right on there because we just want a nice little sky that's not too intense. And also to mix with some mist we're going to add. So under Influence, well, we want to click on Preview so we can be able to see what our clouds are going to look like. Because any texture you create in the World tab, that's going to be in the background. The first thing we need to do, which Blender should automatically do when you set a texture to World, it should automatically do this, but it doesn't. You need to unselect Blend and select Horizon. And now this is what we're going to see in all the gray area in the background anywhere where Blender renders. So we're going to change it from pink to a nice blue. While pink would be pretty psychedelic, it's not exactly what I want to do right now. And make sure that horizon's all the way up, and want to click back on the World tab here and click on the preview so we can see how that's looking, and make sure Real Sky is activated. What Real Sky does is that makes it to where if I'm turning left or right within my animation, it's going to keep the position of that sky absolute to where when we turn, it seems like we're actually turning you know, where clouds are changing, you know, so it's not like a flat still image behind there. So that sets up that pretty much. And the other thing we want to activate is mist. And there's a few important little things to note about mist. The first one is when you click on mist, you may not see anything at all initially, but if you go back into the window and middle mouse click and rotate around a little bit, then it goes, oh yeah, I forgot we had that activated. Also, the mist effect is affecting the textures, really the transparency of the textures in the scene. If you have solid on, you won't see any of the mist. And that's any Mojo in Blender game, Blender Render, whatever. To see the effects of the mist, you have to have texture selected. And then also the third thing that might be going on if you turn mist on and you have texture selected and you still can't see it is the depth. The really the two only things you want to fool with, the two main things you want to fool with the mist is the depth and the starting point. And the lower I make this number, the more the mist is going to come up on it. And then the starting of it, I mean, for all practical purposes, for me, seems to control the amount of gradation of the mist line where the mist starts coming towards you. But we want that to be up to, not that, that's way too much. We want it to be around to where, because anywhere is white in this scene is going to be, that's going to be transparent, and our cool clouds that we just made here is going to come through the mist there. But we want it to be to where the top of this tower is looking, in fact, I'm going to draw this animation back. We want it to where the top of the tower looks like there's a certain amount of aerial perspective going on up there, but not to the point where it just looks translucent and cheesy. So I'm going to go ahead and render this, hitting F12. And that looks pretty dope. That's right around what I'm thinking is cool, because it looks, what the effect that comes off is that the tower is so high up there that it's starting to get lost in the clouds, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to hit my tilde key to unmaximize that, or whatever the opposite of maximize is. I'm going to feel like an idiot later. But anyway, let's go ahead and pull the timeline a bit later and get up in on something cool looking like this, because that looks pretty sick. And let's do a test render of that. Alright, that's pretty dope. This is going to be a cool animation. And so you're pretty much set up and ready to go for your animation. I'm assuming that you've had a lamp on in your scene, or you wouldn't be able to see the textures. So you're set up there. Maybe a few notes under the render, under the dimensions. I keep mine for most of my animations at 1280 by 720 because that's a common internet preset to get, like, for HD settings on the internet and YouTube and stuff like that. And I do 25 frames per second because that's 24 to 25 is standard film, but I found that the compression for H.264, which is the main workhorse of internet video compression and Blu-ray compression, a lot of it compresses best at 25 frames per second. And then also, when you're outputting your animation, you want to make sure, I have mine set to a PNG, which creates a PNG sequence, which is essentially like prints out every frame from the first frame to the last, like in a folder full of hundreds of frames. And I do that because I edit my shots in other software, or if I'm adding sound or something like that to it, so I can keep the files as crisp as possible. But if you want to do straight to animation, you can of course do an AVI RAW, but typically, and especially Windows, AVI codecs can be a nightmare, and the files will get extremely huge because it's essentially an uncompressed file. But if you're just wanting to make a fun animation for yourself to watch or to upload on YouTube or something, and really it's a decent quality for video editing too, you would pick MPEG or H.264. And then make sure you click on the little file and click your desktop or your C drive or wherever and give your video a name. My video. Then click accept. And then under render, instead of render, you'd want to click animation. And you'd also want to be prepared to wait anywhere between from a couple hours to a couple of days, because Lord knows how long it's going to take to render this out and how long your animation is. Oh, one quick thing. Remember when we set the end frame to real high to make sure that it would keep animating when we were doing the physics? Make sure you bring that number, because your starting frame is at 0. Make sure you bring the end back down, and you can see the little gray there moving. That's the end of it, to where your yellow lines are, your timeline here. And that way you won't be rendering a bunch of extra frames that you don't need. And so that pretty much sums up this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make something really cool of your own and you're inspired to make your own. Once again, if you haven't watched the Creating a Castle series and you want to be able to learn how to make your own interesting castles with crazy bricks and stuff, and then you can go back and destroy those. All right, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and peace out.